recorded live.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation or around the world. Once again, you were listening to the VMware Communities Roundtable podcast. This is podcast number 597. My name is Eric Nelson. With me today, I have my regular co-host, Corey Romero, the best co-host in the entire planet. Today is Wednesday, March 23rd, 2022. Corey Romero, how you doing today?
Hey, Eric, doing fantastic. Yeah, things are well here in Utah. And turning along with the weather. Weather's starting to turn around and warm up a little bit.
Cool. That's good. Weather down here in northern, southern, I don't know where we put it, mid-central California is beautiful. It has been 72 degrees, blue skies, no more rain, no more anything. So we're looking really good today. Beautiful weather, blue skies. On the show today, we're going to be talking to Rudy Martinson. He's a PSO consultant for VMware, and he has a great blog. You can go to, I think it's rudymartinson.com, if I'm right on that one, and check out his blog. It's a great blog, and we're here with Rudy today to talk to him about installing Contour on a Tanzu Community Edition cluster. But if you go to his blog, he also has doing other things on top of Tanzu Community Edition, TCE. So we'll talk to him a little bit about what it means to be running Tanzu and installing things from the package repository. So we'll get to Rudy in a second. But before we get to Rudy, Corey Romero, me and a buddy run a rack in San Jose, so we can just do fun things. And we put vSphere on a couple microservers there, and my buddy's been calling me going like, dude, our license is expiring. We've only got like 20 more days. I'm getting super nervous. We've got this vExpert license that we're using on our Super Micro. What are we gonna do? And I'm getting them. So Corey Romero, what is the licensing status for vExperts?
Licenses are out. So licenses are available in the vExpert portal, and you can go and choose out. We've got vSphere 6 and 7 there available for you. So Eric, your license is there. You can go find it. Speaking of the vExpert portal, we're also doing a redesign in the portal. So that'll be coming next week. We're going to launch that. We're doing some testing this week and some further development. So that's happening. And our sub-programs are closing. Applications are closing on the 28th. So if you're a vExpert and you're interested in getting into a sub-program, go read my mail, or if you know about which one you want, just go apply. Go to vexpert.vmware.com and click on sub-programs and get your application in.
So, Corey, we're going to go full on Craigslist, all right? Just all text,
yes.
List of stuff, nothing else, like a Wikipedia, kind of like no graphics, just vExpert text.
Not even a logo, just text.
Right. In fact, I heard that you're making a VI compatible interface, right? So then a shell interface so that you can just LS minus LTR, and you get to see all the latest vExperts.
That's right.
I'm super excited about this, right? And that's all brand compliant, right? Because the brand people don't have any problem with just text with green and white text. And
hey, as long as we have the right font, that's all that matters.
Right. And of course, I know personally you've been working on the Emacs plugin, right? So not only that, if you don't like VI and you want Emacs, you can go in there and then edit your profile using all text-based interface, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely, of course.
That's good. That's awesome. And then Tony Foster wants an API for it, so that way he can just write his own stuff, and it has to be a PowerShell API. No, none of this JSON file, PHP, Python.
Tony, I got you taken care of.
Yeah, this is great. We are super excited to see the vExpert portal. As always, Corey, thanks for doing the hard work and being here. Have you managed to get summer yet in Utah?
No, well, we had this weekend we're going to hit 73 degrees Saturday or Sunday, one of the two.
Very good.
Nice.
Very
yeah.
Good. Because I've been telling people that I'm getting my Jeep and I'm gonna get my motorcycle rack, put it on. I'm heading to Utah. We're gonna go
July. July. We're gonna go do some dirt bike riding. Yes, we are.
Turns nice. All right, sweet. All right, well, let's get through the chit chat and let's introduce our guest, Rudy Martinson. Rudy, thanks for coming on the show, and thanks for being a blogger and a vExpert. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? How long have you been in the VMware ecosystem, and how did you get here? What does your career arc look like?
Thanks, Eric. Thanks for having me. Well, I've been working in IT for a number of years. I actually started my work career in a supermarket. So I got into IT that way, helping out with the cash registers and all of that. Then after a few years, I actually got into the main office to help them with supporting the other supermarkets in one of Norway's biggest, largest supermarket chains. So I was there for a few years, supporting roughly 2,000 supermarkets across the nation. And after that, I started working for a Norwegian service provider with approximately 500-600 customers, a few thousand VMs across a couple of data centers. And that was when I also got started blogging started blogging on what we did in our environment, supporting that many VMs and how we managed performance and all of that. And back in 2018, I was included in the vExpert program, which was super cool. And for the last 2.5 years, I've been working with Proact, which is a Norwegian company, primarily focused on storage backup, that sort of things. But also, we have a strong VMware team of consultants helping customers running their data centers. And I've also been, as you mentioned, part of the PSO consultant, the contracted side of it for VMware for about a year.
Nice. So you're working for a consulting organization out of Norway. You're in the VMware practice space, right? And then, you don't work at VMware. You work there, and you engage on VMware customer base. It's fascinating that you came up through the grocery store space, right? Like, I think that's interesting. I've had a lot of guys that worked in hospitals. You talk a lot of IT administrators. They come through hospitals. They take through large gas stations, right? Like where you have thousands of outlets. Taco Bell, fast food places. Like, people think of technology and they think tech. And you don't really think, like, by the way, grocery stores use virtualization, right? Like they're running cash registers. Taco Bell was that way. They're running cash registers, right? And it's crazy how efficient they have to be per outlet, right? Because there's so many outlets that if you spend an extra $300 on anything per outlet, that ends up being big dollar budget that they have to figure out how to do, right? And so it's an interesting space.
Yeah, and back then when I worked there, that's it's 10 years ago. So obviously things have changed a lot since then. But it was very fascinating being part of it and watching everything from the cash register itself to automatically ordering of new goods and stuff like that. So it's
nice.
It's huge. It is.
Nice. All right. So very typical of your career here. Been blogging, been a vExpert for a few years, and we'll do a shout out to your blog, which I went to. And I know I always say good things about blogs because I'm not going to bring a guest in and tell them their blog is horrible, right? So I always generally would say, but I got to say your blog actually I really enjoyed. So I would say go to rudymartinsen.com, and you spell Rudy RUDI. Martinsen, MARTINSEN.com. If you get a moment, you're sitting at your computer, go check out his blog because you got a couple of my favorite things that are at that blog. And we'll get into your article around, Tanzu and Contour. But I was impressed by your vSphere performance blog, right? That's there. You got like a volume 1 and a volume 2, like an older one and a newer one. And it's so rare that actually people spend time focused on performance these days, right? And maybe it's because machines are getting faster and nobody has to worry about it. How did that blog go over? Did you get a lot of feedback on that blog?
Yeah, I did actually, and I think that was part of me starting blogging at first, but also what made me a expert actually, because well, the whole performance series started with me at my previous employer. We were a service provider, so we obviously we had a lot of VMs sharing infrastructure, so we needed to have keep close tabs on the performance of the entire platform, but also be able to see individual VMs that would affect the performance of the platform. And being a service provider with that many customers, licensing wise, we couldn't or wouldn't go for VROps, and also that time VROps was kind of working on 5-minute intervals, which was not good enough for us. So we decided to build our own solution. So that's the whole series, me going through how we built it, and why we built it the way we did. And I think that's kind of my blogging is kind of it's a way for me to really understand what I have done,
Right.
to kind of segment the things that I've done so that I have the best possible understanding of it myself, actually. And if that could help others, then that's a bonus.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting when you're writing things and building slides for training or whatever. It's funny, like I know about 80% of what I'm talking about, but it's that 20% that you have to step back and go, wait, I'm missing a section here that I should probably have in my slides or training. So go back and do some research and find out what you find out. Do you ever get some feedback from readers that go, hey, I learned this, and they give you some feedback on stuff that then, because I've noticed that as well, that even when I go start presenting or teaching or whatever I'm doing, that I'll always get another 25% of good ideas that I'll go back and then work on my content.
Yeah, I do, and that can bring a new topic, or I have to go back and change something I did in the blog post, and then I learn even more. So it goes both ways, actually, which is what the community is all about, I guess.
Yeah. And I would say that anybody's listening, if you're not blogging, you should, just as a good IT practice, because it's a way to organize your thoughts. And many people, it's like, it becomes my document. It becomes my run book, right? It becomes like, oh, I need to go back and remember how I did this because I got to do it again. And I've written a nice article on what I did. So it's actually good for that. So that's kind of neat. All right. So my other favorite article, you've got performance, you got vRealize, you got Tanzu, exam reviews, CKA. I don't even know what CKA is, but you can tell me what CKA. What's CKA?
Certified Kubernetes Administrator.
I got a certification for Kubernetes section there. Good. And you also had a certification area where your exam reviews are you going and getting various VCP certifications, and then you write nice blog articles on what you had to learn, what you had to do to get that certification. So that was pretty cool as well.
And that's also kind of the process for me. Doing a certification is all about learning. It's not about that paper you get. So, and that's kind of, again, back to the segment what you have learned, and just get it through the writing process. Then you kind of
I gotta say, every time I bring people on and I look at their blogs, I feel incredibly lazy because I look at everything you guys are doing. I'm like, how do these guys fit this in? How do they get to all these certifications and they're doing things at the same time and they're blogging about it? It's crazy. So I'll do one more shout out, and I think you mentioned this as part of the vExpert program, but another one that I thought was great was you have a Plex server project that is how to put Plex on Tanzu, right? So I thought that was a fun article. Always fun to get a Plex server up and running and load a bunch of stuff on it to share. So was that, how did you end up doing that?
Yeah, that was actually, I'm also a part of the vExpert application modernization sub program. So back in late December, I think it was, we got a challenge from the guys leading that program. the challenge was to architect and create a solution for running Plex as a production in like a production environment. So and the reason, or I think the point of that challenge was to get people interested in TCE, Tanzu Community Edition, and being able to learn more about it. And then again, being that to go through the process of learning things, I like to write about it. So I decided to, okay, let's go all in and do things step by step. So the article we are here to talk about today, the Contour article, is a part of that challenge. So for me, it ended up in like 8 or 9 articles, I think, going through the deployment of the Tanzu Community Edition cluster, bringing up a load balancer, cert manager, the Contour, backup with Velero, and all of this. So it was kind of a whole process of going through.
So this was a challenge from the vExpert subgroup, application subgroup, where they gave you not just a Plex server, but a list of things to go do to, help you, one, understand the community edition, and two, become an expert in this space.
Yeah, no, we didn't get like a list of things to do. It was the challenge was bring you design an architect and bring up a solution for running Plex in a production-like environment.
Oh, I see. Okay, so all the components that revolved around that, you had to go do that, right? Yeah. And that's what spun up the articles themselves. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so
and I actually ended up winning the whole contest, which was kind of nice.
Congratulations! So, nice.
Thanks.
Yeah, you get to. Is it a typical reward that VMware has, which is congratulations? You get to say you won, or did they actually give you anything?
I heard some rumors about loads of swag, but I haven't seen it yet. So
yeah, this is very common.
Someday.
This is a very marketing strategy common. We're all excited about running the campus, building a campus contest, even announcing that we're going to give away some stuff, but actually the hard work of going and getting brand via to actually get some swag and then posting it to somewhere and paying the VAT on it in order to get it to you without charging you another extra $100. The steps needed, it's actually easier to do Tanzu setup than it is to actually get a t-shirt sent to you. So I feel their pain.
Yeah.
Cool. So one of the things that I read in your blog, watched in your blog, everybody should go to, go check it out. It basically, is a great blog on all the steps to install Contour. So maybe we should just talk about Contour first. What is Contour? I mean, I know it does ingress control, but why don't we talk what is ingress control and what is Contour doing in your architecture here?
Yeah, so ingress is a way to kind of it exposes the HTTP or HTTPS sites from outside of the Kubernetes cluster and maps that to different Kubernetes services. So a service can have can be of a few different types, load balancer being one of them. But I think, well, especially in the public cloud, if you were exposing your Kubernetes resources through a load balance service every time, you will spin up a lot of load balancers, which will bring a lot of cost in the end. So and ingress is a way to kind of have one entry point into the cluster and then map from there to the different services. So it's kind of a proxy.
So it's like a load balancer proxy kind of environment that's actually then directing traffic to the services as requests come in.
Yeah, and also the load balancer service does thing on layer 4, and ingress can do layer 7, obviously. So it's not just for saving load balancer resources, but we can think of it as a proxy essentially. And then we have we have ingress is comprised of a couple of different components. We have the ingress controller, which is kind of the control plane for the ingress resources. And then we have ingress resources or other types of ingress resources, which is where we put in some kind of a rule set to say that this URL should go to this service and so forth.
Right. Would a Plex server need that?
Yeah, if you think of a Plex server, you have a lot of different entry points. You have the web entry, of course, but there are also other entry points for discovery of the Plex server and so forth. So I think I ended up with 3 or 4 different services, and then you also have you have to differentiate TCP and UDP, for instance, if you're doing layer 4. So you will end up in a lot of services in the end.
Interesting. All right. Nice. Going through the setup, right? How long did it take you to, get that set up? I could start by saying we have talked on this podcast before of how easy it is to get the Kubernetes server up and running, the community edition. It's supposedly 1 or 2 clicks and away you go. Did you experience that, or was it? Because I listened to that and go, yeah, sure it is. Yeah, that never goes that way.
No,
WordPress, the easiest install ever, but it's not. It's not.
Yeah.
It never is.
No, I think I've spent loads of hours setting this up, partly because I wanted to learn in a proper way. So and with learning, you have to fail to learn, kind of. So I would put up things and then tear it down, put it up again, tear it down, put it up again, and then do the blog post about it.
Right.
So for each and every of those blog posts, 8 or 9 blog posts, there are several hours behind that, of course. But I think what I've spent most time with is the actual Plex installation and how to get that working.
Right. So it's less about the infrastructure and
Yeah.
getting the VMware payload up, but actually just on the Plex server itself.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Definitely.
That brings me to my next topic, which is the packaging repository, right? So I've installed Linux and CentOS, a bazillion times, right? I used to tell people I should have a dime for every time I set up a machine, right? But then I realized that they paid me more than that, probably. So I probably do have a dime for every machine I've set up. So I've spent a lot of my share setting up Linux packages and using repositories. Let's talk a little bit about the Tanzu TCE repository that you're using to pull packages down and install stuff.
Yeah, so with TCE, you have the Tanzu package repository, and this is a repository of a lot of open source products, actually. So you have Contour, you have things like FluentBit, Harbor, you have Velero for backup restore, and a few others. So the package repository is a way to install those packages into your cluster and configure them through a configuration file, and then you'll have those services available to you inside the Kubernetes cluster. So it's an easy way to install stuff, actually.
They must have a URL. Maybe Tony Foster can go look for the URL that lists what's in the package repository for Tanzu, right? They must have a website that gives you everything that's available there, because that's one of the other things. It always seems like it's magic to figure out, what's available that I could install, right? Unless I happen to find your blog, then I go, oh, he did this. Here's the repository, projectregistry.com/TCE says me. Okay. And you look at that and you go, okay, how is he getting Contour out of that? Right. But there must be a place where they go list everything that's available.
Yeah, you have on the Tanzu Community Edition website, you have a menu option there for packages, so that will list every package. And obviously, when you're in the CLI and are working with your Tanzu clusters, you'll install the path to the package repository, and then you can list them directly in your CLI.
You realize that was like a nice softball that I threw over home plate for you to hit out of the park, which is in your blog article. It says list available package, Tanzu package repository list. And you run a command right in there, which I really like your blog article because it gives you the screenshots that you're running. So you can actually, I hate when people give me examples, but don't actually show me the command, right? So I can see what the command is, but you got it right there. Tanzu package available list, right?
Yeah, and I try to do both. So I give both the command because I like to copy paste, and then also the screenshot, so you can see what is the expected result. So
yeah, the only problem I have is when I copy and paste, but then I hack it, because I'm putting it in as a blog text, and then I make a typo, and then I get to everybody complain that your command didn't work. But I really like it. I think yours is actually just screenshots, right? Which is nice, but maybe not. Maybe that's blog editing. I don't know. But you got that there, and then you check the details of the package, right? So you can do go look at get contour community Tanzu VMware.com from the repository, and it goes and gets it, right?
Yep. And you'll get all the values you need to fill out. Some of them are required, some of them are not, and the package repository will tell you all of that as well. So that's really nice.
Right. And I would say that if you want to go learn a little bit more about Contour, it's projectcontour.io, which I think you list in the blog article as well, so you can go read about what's actually there. Question that I meant to ask you is what are you installing this on? What hardware do you actually have in wherever you're installing it? Is it a home lab, or is it somewhere in production or somewhere in your work environment?
Yeah, so all of this, all of the things done in the Plex challenge is running on one Intel NUC. So not that much of hardware to.
So I went on Amazon. I went on Amazon and I looked at Intel NUCs, and there's like about a zillion options for Intel NUCs. How much memory and storage do you have on your Intel NUC?
So this specific one was I think it was, this had 32 gigs of memory and 2 terabytes of storage. Storage is for this project was not. I could do
not important.
No.
I should say, what CPU do you have too? Like
this was the this was actually the i3.
Ooh,
so
all right.
So yeah.
Yeah, I wondered about that because I had heard rumors from William Lamb that he had the big huge server running that I think it was like a terabyte of memory, some huge amount. I'm just like, I'm used to running on 32 gig, right? Why do you need so much of everything, right? So that's kind of cool that you're on an i3. We're looking at some NUCs to buy for the guys on the community team, give everybody a NUC for Christmas or some. And I was just wondering, could I get away with an i3? Because an i3 only costs $350 on Amazon, versus when you get up i7, you're at $800, right? So it gets a little bit more pricey. And if we want to give everybody a cool vExpert gift, wouldn't it be cool to give everybody a NUC, right? Like that. Yeah, fun thing to do, and how to deal with that. But I don't want to give people a NUC that's useless, right? So interesting. They do have the i3 NUCs out there, and I was looking at them, wondering if I'm not running workloads in production. I should be able to get things running. Might be slow, but it should be good, right? So everybody that's listening to this should be able to do that.
Yeah, and it obviously it depends on what you're wanting to run. So for doing this Tanzu community thing, I could do with my laptop actually. So it doesn't require that much computing power, but I also work a lot with the vRealize suite, and I can't use my NUCs to run VRA, for instance, because it requires 12 CPUs and stuff like that. So it depends on what you're what you want to run.
Yeah, right. vRealize is a different animal, but
Yeah.
I had heard that Kubernetes was heavy, right? Like back, this was a year and a half, 2 years ago. Everything seems time warped because of the COVID. I think it's only a month ago from when I was working at VMware in the office, but it's actually 2 years ago. But a couple of years ago, when we were messing with Kubernetes, I think back then they had a pretty heavy implementation where you did need, like X number of CPU. You couldn't put it on even a single machine. It felt like it was like something they wanted you to have multiple VMs running, etc. But this is good. The community edition, I've heard, is easier, lighter, and works for you. So that's good.
Yeah, and that's I guess the whole point with the community edition is to get people started with the Tanzu portfolio and try it out in your own lab or your laptop or what have you.
So since you are in the application, subgroup, I can hit you with some application questions too, and you are also a PSO doing work with customers. What's your sense of interest in modernizing applications and running it on top of Tanzu or vSphere with Tanzu or Tanzu native? What's your impression in that? Are people not quite there yet? Like, are they starting to ask you questions about that? I know you're learning about it and you're putting time, so we all assume that's where the industry's going. Just to getting a sense of where everybody's at when it comes to customers asking you for advice and engagement.
Yeah, from my point of view, I think the last 3 projects I worked with PSO has been, for my part, focused on the vRealize suite, but all of those projects actually also do Tanzu. So they do that through VCF, VMware Cloud Foundation,
Right.
And that was for all of them a huge part of doing the whole VCF thing was to have that platform available
for modern apps for Tanzu. Yeah.
And I think 2 out of 3 are trying or are looking for a migration from OpenShift to something else, and then Tanzu being that other thing.
Okay, that's interesting to know. Raghu kind of says that, yes, we're getting a lot of interest in the field. Customers are moving there. Customers are moving to modern apps. They're going to build solutions on top of Kubernetes, and he's super excited about it. And he thinks that we're moving in that direction. And then the second thing he talks about is multi-cloud and people putting this stuff in the cloud as well. So yeah, it's interesting to hear from the field how much of that is real versus how much of that is not real. Right? So good to know that. So we've talked about your platform. We've talked about your blog and talked about some of the customer interaction that you have there. I'll always kind of look at like, where do you think this is going then? Like when you think about next year and your learnings with regards to Tanzu, what do you think interests you and the customers from the customer ability to kind of absorb this? What are the interesting areas that you're finding will start taking more of your time?
Well, first off, I must say I've been a bit surprised that it hasn't. We have been talking about containers for a lot of years, but it hasn't it has moved more slowly than I would have expected. So I would imagine that with Tanzu now coming in with its full force from all of VMware, we will do a lot more with it in my space, at least. Talking to the infrastructure teams out there. So I expect it to be a lot more talk about containers, application modernization, and Tanzu in specific. And I think for VI admins, Tanzu is kind of, and Tanzu Community Edition maybe specifically is something to really take a look at now. Get your hands dirty, learn about it, and try it out on your own self, just to get a grip of what is this thing. VMware has done a great job, in my opinion, to kind of trying to bridge the VI admins and the developer teams with Tanzu. But now it's up to us VI admins to actually to learn about it and use the technology that is there ready for us to test out.
And that takes me back to your blog and the CKA exam resources, Certified Kubernetes Administrator. Do you, as an IT administrator, do you think that's necessary to, know the command set in order to control Kubernetes? Because if you look at kube control and you look at what you need to do, how to configure YAML files, is that something that's worthwhile? And I know that we have some resources that can go point at Kubernetes education as well, and not necessarily Tanzu, but just coming up to speed. It's kind of like coming up to speed with Linux, right? Sooner or later, somebody you have to learn Linux, and you have to learn ls-l. Everybody does, right? Because you're not going to really be an administrator very long if you don't know enough about Linux to run Linux, right? So I guess the question is it kind of the same with regards to Kubernetes and becoming an administrator for Kubernetes as well?
I think since VMware has done a lot with Tanzu and bringing it in to vSphere, for instance, with vSphere Tanzu, it's not maybe not necessary to do the CKA, but if you want to have a bit more understanding and if you are kind of like me, that when I want to learn something, I want to learn it. I want to learn everything about it. Then the CKA is a great entry point, in my opinion. And I actually did the CKA before I touched most of the Tanzu stuff, because I wanted to have the kind of unbiased entry into that kind of world and see what the source wants us to learn, kind of, yeah. But I think some kind of Kubernetes knowledge is actually you need to have some kind of Kubernetes knowledge, but there are other resources as well. Tanzu Community Edition is a great starting point, and there are a lot of resources around that to help you learn what you need to know in that regard.
And that takes me back to your Plex application, the Plex challenge, right? Because to me, you almost have to have the application, not only learning Kubernetes, but getting an example application so you can see how all the parts are managed, right? Like, because if you don't have that full app, and I think somebody did like a grocery store app or a pizza ordering app, a couple of years ago from VMware, Dan something, or they used to have him on his podcast, and they'd always come with this app, which was a homegrown fake app called orderpizza.com or running a pizza restaurant online or something. And they had an example app so that you could see how you have the services, you have the connection points, you have to do all the steps. So I think the Plex service is actually a better one for that, because it's real. And then you have something at the end of it that you could actually use.
Yeah.
And I looked at, like, when I did the Raspberry Pi, putting Kubernetes on a Raspberry Pi, and then I had a whole bunch of little sensor PHP apps that you could run as workloads that would be deployed. It's not real because they don't have connection points. They're not web apps, right? But at least you've got something that you have to understand the application layer, what apps you're running, code compiled, and then those get deployed out to worker nodes. And without that whole interaction with the app as well, you don't really get a good sense of how this is all coming together, right? And being used.
Yeah, and I mean, there are tons of examples out there with step-by-step guides on how to get those kind of pizza apps up and running. But I think if you want to go a bit further, you need to do stuff from scratch and build things on yourself. So that's why that Plex challenge was so great, because it kind of you didn't get a pre-compiled script that you just could run. You had to do step by step yourself. So it was a great learning experience, actually.
Yeah. Was the Valero backup part of that exercise? Because I see you have a blog article, and I will do a shout out, rudymartinsen.com, rudimartinsen.com. You also have a deploy Valero for backup and restore for the Tanzu Community Edition. Was that part of that exercise, or is this just another article you did?
I had that as a part of the challenge because being a production environment, you need to have some kind of a backup and restore. So I put that in as well because, simulate.
Yeah. I get on some of these services. Do they give you free test accounts, or do you have to buy said service?
Yeah, so I think all of those packages I've used are open source tools, so everything is free, and that's also the point of the Tanzu Community Edition, that everything is available for free. And then if you want, and that's actually also something we get some questions about in the field, is why do we need to buy a license for running Tanzu with, and then use those packages and buy a license for it when the stuff is open source? And the answer to that, when you buy that license, you also get to call VMware for support on those open source packages, which you won't do with the community edition, obviously, but the licensed versions of Tanzu will get VMware support.
Yeah, and I think that's that's why Red Hat exists, right? Like, because it's all Linux, it's open source. But when you have issues and you want somebody to call, scrolling through forums is nice. You can get answers, but it's sometimes like 50% of the time the answers don't work, and then you have to call somebody, and they have and if they don't, they can go write code to fix it and get you a patch. Right? So sooner or later you'll get resolved on that. So that's neat. Any articles that you're thinking about working as you go forward?
Oh, well, I have this other series that I have done, which is not Tanzu specific, but it's more on the vRealize side. So I did a couple of years ago kind of how to bring up a nested lab environment, which you could order from VRA. So I'm thinking of doing a refresh on that. That previous series was done on VRA 7. Now I'm thinking of doing it on VRA 8. So it's kind of a way to have our, and this wouldn't run in my lab environment at home, but it's kind of a way for the other consultants in my team to order a hands-on labs in our company lab environment. So that would be the next project, I think.
Nice. Well, Norway and your North Sea oil fields are doing well. The economy is doing well. So hopefully you guys can keep on keeping on. And with oil prices where they are, you guys should have a little mini boom there, right? If you're lucky. So that'll be good for Norway, right? It's good to have that. All right. Well, we're coming up to the top of the hour. I usually will ask, do you have a Twitter handle or other ways for people to follow you? Where do you recommend people go for learning anything about Kubernetes and Tanzu, as well as how do they follow you? Other than your blog, obviously, which we've repeated several times here. So are you on Twitter? Or you go to your blog? Are people able to comment on your blog? How do they interact with you if they have questions?
Yeah, I do not have comments on my blog anymore because of all of the GDPR and all of that mess. But I am on Twitter, so my Twitter handle is my name, Rudy Martinsen, RUDIMARTINSEN.
Nice.
So we have that, and for doing Kubernetes articles, go to the tanzu.vmware.com, and you'll have lots of stuff going on there, which also has links to learning the Kubernetes Academy, for instance, which is
sure
Kube Academy, which is the VMware resource. So that's that's all you need to get started.
Yeah, exactly. And go to your blog, rudymartinsson.com, RudyMartinsson, and give him a tweet. Say hello. I'm sure he'll follow you back. Good to go. As we finish up here at the end of the hour, question for you. We always talk about barbecue here in the US because it's lunchtime. We do this podcast over lunch, so we're always hungry. And we are on YouTube at V Barbecue, BARBECUE. Go over there if you want to see what Rudy looks like. We'll have him up on the front page of the YouTube channel. You can watch us there if you want to check us out. And see what it looks like. So question for you, Rudy. Does in Norway, do they actually have barbecue? I mean, my grandfather's from Denmark, and all they had was pickled herring, right? So I don't know if you do barbecue, but if you do, what's your favorite barbecue, or do you ever get around to doing your own barbecue? And if so, what do you do?
Yeah, we do barbecue, of course. Not that much now in the winter, but we're closing up on the spring. So I think maybe that the barbecue will come out this weekend. But we do a lot of chicken, actually. That's kind of the.
I thought you would do I'm thinking Norway Fields. You would do lamb or goat or something, like chickens. They got chickens.
Yeah. Well, we.
Do you
my
smoke
wife,
or do you use sauce?
No. I'm not that sophisticated as you guys are. So it might
just
be.
Put it on and put some barbecue sauce on, and away you go.
Yeah.
That's all right.
With 3 little kids, always hungry, so we don't have time for cooking for a long time. So
yeah, if you have children, that's a lot of fun. You can have a lot of fun. I'll do one last barbecue story, and then we'll let everybody go. I'm sitting around a grill, and my little kid comes up, Mikey. He's like 6 years old, and he's watching. And I have the barbecue sauce on a brush, and I'm like, "Oh, look, see, it's the barbecue sauce brush." And he looks at, "Oh, yeah." And then I just slap him across the face with it, right? And I barbecue. I give him a sauce, and he had his mouth open, so some of it like right in his mouth. And from now on, now that I'm older, he barbecues because he's married, and and this is just a lesson. Do not do anything to your children that you don't want them to do back to you when you get older, right? Because they will seek their revenge.
They will get back.
They will get back. You will be older, and you will think about it and chuckle and go, "I probably shouldn't have done that." Right? So they are adults much longer than they are children. All right. Well, hey, thanks a lot for coming on the show. Thanks a lot for being a blogger, being a expert, and producing the content and learning and the journey and promoting VMware. I appreciate all of it. So thanks a lot for being on the show, Rudy, and thanks for being a blogger.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
All right. We'll be back again next week. And until then, go get some barbecue and enjoy your life. And we'll see you soon.